Brady doesn't seem that worried about his offensive line. What do you think is the biggest concern for the Bucs this year? Also, welcome to the show.
Appreciate it. Well, it's obviously the overall health of the entire team, in particular Brady. So when you talk about Brady being a potential health hazard, where does that stem from? Your offensive line.
I'm telling you.
So when I hear Brady talking about, everybody's doubting my offensive line, yes, you're going to exude all sorts of confidence into these guys because you want them to step on the field with an enormous amount of confidence. But you're lacking some great interior play there. You're losing a center. You're losing a left guard. And they're not just your typical left guard and centers.
Best in the league.
Exactly.
Both those spots.
And so there's going to be some concerns there. And then you're adding pieces. Like the health of this offense is of concern. In particular, Brady. If he's been known to be pressured up the middle.
Yep.
And if you get him up the middle, you can rattle him. If he gets hit, this is an offensive line. This is an offense that gave up the fewest amount of sacks, 23, and the least amount of pressures, by a large margin. And so with that being the case, you obviously have to look at this offensive line and have some level of concern.
First of all, it's great to see you, fresh off another Mr. Olympia and Masters. Did you win the Masters? Nice green jacket, my friend. I mean, he looks great. But, all right, first I want to give Tom Brady a little credit.
Oh, good.
You know what? We've had a lot of
should we applaud that?
We've had a lot of lying from quarterbacks. Russell Wilson saying, I took the contract, wasn't for the money. Meanwhile, I just bought the most expensive house in the history of Denver. That's a true story. We've had a lot of lying from quarterbacks lately. Jimmy Garoppolo, I didn't want to ruffle feathers. Tom Brady, being an honest guy.
Yeah.
I listen, I hear, I use as motivation. Because if we've seen the Tom Brady docu-series, the different ones we've seen, he plays clips of people doubting him. Like, we know he listens. He doesn't claim to be a guy. I don't hear any of it, so I give him credit there. And I agree with Greg football-wise that the worst injury the Bucs could suffer is the one they suffered, other than Brady. The worst injury they could suffer is their center because Brady's too smart, he gets to the ball too fast to where pressure off the edge doesn't really get to him.
Yep.
Like one of the reasons they give so few sacks is because they have a good offensive line. The other is because Brady's getting the ball out. But up the middle, nothing you can do about it. But I don't think that's the biggest concern, bro. I think the biggest concern is that Tom Brady doesn't believe they can win the Super Bowl. I think we have a lot of evidence of it. I think if we just do a sober reading of what has happened over the last 9 months. First was the kind of odd comment before the Bucs playoffs started, when he talked about how every year you're trying to win a Super Bowl, but some years, even if you don't, it can still be a successful season. It's like, oh, that's a little odd, right? 13-win team right before you get into the postseason. Then it was he retired from the sport. It's like, oh, that's odd. That's an odd move. Then we find out part of the reason he retired from the sport was, according to the NFL's findings, he's trying to get down to Miami. Then he unretires from the sport, plays with the Bucs. Their coach oddly leaves, but he had nothing to do with it, fine. And then, 11 days out of training camp. Just randomly.
Whatever.
And when he comes back, had what I would consider a press conference where it seemed like that's a disposition I'm not familiar from seeing with Tom Brady, with or without the training camp absence. So I think Tom Brady, he has all the records already. He's made more money than anybody already. He is still playing for one reason, Brew, because he is an all-time competitor and he wants to win more championships. And I think he looks at the injuries on the offensive line. He looks at the age of the roster. He looks at the questions at running back, O-line, secondary, new head coach, and it's like, yeah, we can be good, we can't be great, and I'm in the being great business. Okay. So I think that's their biggest issue.
I disagree. I think there's a worry sandwich where there's two things not to worry about and one thing to worry about. The thing to worry about is the offensive line. But the first piece of bread that you don't have to worry about is missing training camp. So can we just stop? He took some time off of training camp. He's been to 20-plus training camps, he's fine. I think you go to training camp to get in shape. We know the guy's in shape. He's not eating tomatoes. Don't do it, or any nightshade vegetables. He's not into that at all. The second thing is to get familiar with the offense, which he is the offense. So I think he's fine there. The other part is motivation. I just think that once you strap on the helmet and the shoulder pads, the guy is going to be motivated. He's got a lot of stuff going on, but do I think he's going to be dropping back, looking around at Julio Jones and being like, how are my boxer brief sales going? No, he's going to be locked in, totally focused. The one thing there you should worry about is the O-line, and Greg touched on it. If we can see the stats on how Brady does when he's pressured, not great, not necessarily the GOAT. Then we look at we can run through who he lost, just so we know, have a little rundown of resume of who's no longer on the offensive line and how familiar he was with that offensive line. We know that was one of the reasons why we liked
both guards in the center.
Yeah, also 33 games. These aren't just new guys that came in. So, Brew, I'm not going to worry about motivation. I'm not going to be worried about missing training camp. I think that was overblown. The offensive line is something I think you got to worry about.
Well, look, let me start here. Nick, don't think I didn't take note that two of my guys caught strays.
Who caught stray?
In a Tom Brady conversation, how does Russell Wilson and Jimmy Garoppolo drive-bys?
And I knew Brew wasn't talking next. I knew Wildes was going next. So I'm like, you might not even hear us.
I didn't hear anything else he said after that. But no, look, you all made good points. The offensive line is absolutely a problem. You saw the numbers. He's not the GOAT when he doesn't get the protection. And I agree with Nick that I don't think Brady thinks they can win it. And I think I've been saying this since his last year in New England.
Thank you, Greg.
That he is no longer at the point where he can carry pretty good talent to the Super Bowl. He left New England. I think he wanted to leave because he was like, I got to get somewhere where they got what I need. And Tampa had that the last 2 years. I'm not sure I don't think he thinks they have that anymore. That's why, like Nick said,
he wanted to go to Miami.
He's got wandering eyes. Yeah. And then the offensive line, he is going to be in trouble. I think the skill positions are fine when they're healthy. When Godwin gets back, and I think they'll be fine. And I'm fine with Leonard Fournette. But the offensive line is a problem. And the only saving grace for them, I believe, is the NFC. There's no world beater. If we don't think the Rams, it's hard to repeat. The fact that you threw out Baker Mayfield shows us that the NFC lacks a world beater, and that could help Brady.
So I disagree with both of you, Nick, and you, Chris, when you talk about him not believing that they can win it. Tom Brady is not going to suit up and play football if there is not an opportunity for him to compete for a championship. What you just said at the end matters. And it matters why? Because he knows the NFC is not as stout. Okay. So if there is a chance, which there is, they have to play flawless football. He understands that, which is why he's going to put all the confidence in the world in the offensive line, who we know probably doesn't have all the confidence in the world.
I get what he's trying to do. I get trying to build, and I think that's smart. But I think the reason that I can't buy if he didn't think they would win, he wouldn't be playing. He tried not to play for them. Like, that is, again, we can talk about the rationale and everything behind it.
But he came back.
Because he wanted
at that point he thought. I think when he came back, they had he came back so they get Ryan Jensen.
Right, the first phone call he makes is Ryan Jensen.
Yeah.
But there's two other quick points here that I think are important. One is, Wildes brings up the point, Brady doesn't need training camp. It's not about if he needs it. It's about how odd it is that he missed it. So let me ask you a question,
I agree with that.
Greg. When's the last time you went a full week without working out at all?
I haven't.
Years, right?
Look at his arms. You can tell he
There you go.
Like seventh grade.
Does anybody think that if Greg Jennings went a week without working out, his body'd fall apart, wouldn't be able to do it? No, of course not. But we would be like, oh, is something wrong?
Right.
What's going on?
Correct.
You're not doing what you normally do. It's not that Brady needed the 11 days. It's that it's odd that he wasn't there for those 11 days. And the last thing is this, and here's why it matters if he believes it. Don't you guys remember how they won that Super Bowl? They were a mediocre-ish team most of that year. The Chiefs beat the brakes off them, and then Tony Romo, to his credit, said, and I don't think anybody else saw it, I thought this could be, I think we might see this game again in the Super Bowl. Everyone's like, what? Really? And what did they all say after? Man, with what's his number, 12? I'm bad with player numbers. With 12? I thought I was going to say 11, sorry. With 12, we always knew we could do it.
That's true.
That he instilled a belief amongst them.
Absolutely.
I wonder if he doesn't truly believe it, can it fake it to everyone else? Can instill the belief amongst the other guys? I think that's their biggest issue.
Answer? Yes. Oh, we solved that. Okay. Hey, solved.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get more from the show and to check out clips from other shows on FS1.